All right, this is a screencast on Sylvia Plath, and I'm going to be talking about Daddy. I've always been a big fan of Plath, and I could probably talk about her for way longer than 15 minutes, but I'm going to try to keep it under time today. So if you ever get a chance to read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, you definitely should. It was such a powerful book for me, I think, as a kid or not kid, I should say. I was a teenager when I read it for the first time, but I frequently reread it. Very semi-autobiographical. We talked about Sexton being one of those confessional poets, and Sylvia Plath was largely falling in the same vein. Even though this is definitely not. Um, it's definitely is a prime example of confessional poetry. Here we have that use of the personal and the I, definitely dealing with some dark topics. So let's get started. Let's read, and then I'll talk about. Well, let me talk a little bit about the poem itself first. It was written in 1962 in October, about a month after Plath left her husband, Ted Hughes, who was a poet. Um, so Ted Hughes, she had been obsessed with him. They got married, and in their early marriage, everything was great. They had two kids. Life became much harder. She suffered from severe depression, and so Hughes was having an affair with a woman named Weevil. I see a something along that very strange name. It had been having an affair with her for a large part of their marriage, and so she left. She left him and started over again. She moved from their house in Devon to with her two small children at the time to a flat in London, an apartment in London. And then 4 months later, after she wrote Daddy, she would be dead. She placed her head in the oven and turned on the gas. And that was after she had found out that um, Weevil was pregnant with Hughes's child. And, she had a lot. She had had multiple attempts at suicide prior to that, even when she was a young child, which is really detailed in the bell jar. But she was manic, and so she would have really high highs and really low lows, and so that was kind of the ultimate end there for her, taking her life, on one of those low lows, there. Um, so you have, um, let's read. I guess let's read. You do not do any more, black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or a chew. Daddy, I have had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, a ghastly statue with one gray toe, big as a Frisco seal, and a head in the freakish Atlantic where it pours bean green over blue in the waters of beautiful Nauset. I used to pray to recover you. Ugh, dude. In the German tongue, in the Polish town, scraped flat by the roller of wars, wars, wars. But the name of the town is common. My Polak friend says there are a dozen or two, so I can never tell you what can never tell where you put your foot, your root. I could never talk to you. The tongue stuck in my jaw. It's stuck in a barbed wire snare. Ich. I could hardly speak. I thought every German was you, and the language obscene. An engine, chuffing me off like a Jew to Dachau, Auschwitz, Belsen. I began to talk like a Jew. I think I may well be a Jew. The snows of the Tyrol, the clear beer of Vienna, are not very pure or true. With my gypsy ancestress and my weird luck, and my tarot pack, I may be a bit of a Jew. I've always been scared of you with your Luftwaffe, your gobbledygoo, and your neat mustache and your Aryan eye, bright blue. Panzerman, Panzerman, oh you, not God, but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Every woman adores a fascist, the boot in the face, the brute heart of a brute like you. You stand at the blackboard, Daddy, in the picture I have of you, a cleft in your chin instead of your foot, but no less a devil for that. No, not unless the black man who bit my pretty red heart in two. I was 10 when they buried you. At 20, I tried to die and get back to you. I thought even the bones would do, but they pulled me out of the sack and they stuck me together with glue, and then I knew what to do. I made a model of you, a man in black with a Mein Kampf look and a love of the rack and the screw, and I said, I do, I do. So, Daddy, I finally threw. The black telephone's off at the root. The voices just can't worm through. If I've killed one man, I've killed two. The vampire who said he was you and drank my blood for a year. 7 years, if you want to know. Daddy, you can lie back now. There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. They always knew it was you. Daddy, Daddy, you bastard, I'm through. Okay, there's a lot to unpack, and so I'm gonna try to kind of break it down, and as well as I can, and try to do it justice without going for hours talking about it. 16 stanzas, 80 lines total. We have a lot, 37 end stopped lines. So the end stop here is like it ends right in the end stop. And then you also have a lot of the use of enjambment, where you have it rolls into the next line before it comes to an end. Um, some of her best poetry was written during the 4 months that they lived in that apartment. But this poem remains one of the most controversial poems, modern poems ever written. So we've got dark, surreal, bit like a nursery rhyme. It's about half nursery rhyme. We'll talk about that in just a second. It's loaded with metaphors and similes. But it's painful. It's painful to get through, and it's painful to think about this victim that is finally freeing herself from her father. So, Plath had a diagnosed electrocomplex. It's a Freudian concept, where you have a young girl during early development who kind of competes with her mother for her father's affection. So she was a daddy's girl. We know that. She used the word daddy 7 times in the poem. And while we're talking about that, let's talk about all that baby talk and in the story, in the poem. So every time she's using baby talk, it's basically those dark and power and painful feelings that she has. So she's got daddy, I chew, she's calling a sneeze, I chew, gobbledygoo, which is gobbledygook, is kind of a twist on that, I think, to make it fit. Tongue tied and stammers about the sing song repetitions of words. So we have half nursery rhyme here, and then the other half is really dark and um really like visceral imagery and um visceral imagery that we have here. So, here we are. Plath's dad was a German. He was a Polish. He was born in Poland, but he was German aligned. She calls him a Nazi. And again, her dad died when she was 8. We'll talk about that in just a second. So this construction that is could be allegory, it could be symbolism. This person that she's having to kill is not her daddy, her father. because he died when she was 8. So it goes to show you that like she's never been able to kind of put him behind her. He's loomed over her like a shadow for her whole life, and so that is what she's trying to free herself from here. And her mother was Jewish, born in Austria, was a gypsy, of gypsy descent. So that in itself is, which even if she wasn't a Jew, uh, little is known. Even if she wasn't a Jew, it's very likely that the Jews were not the only people that were persecuted during the Holocaust. Hitler got rid of bands of Roma gypsies, the handicapped, homosexuals. There were all types of persecuted uh, people that fell into that category. So half Nazi, half Jew, and that's what's warring within her um, for attention here, and for trying to cleanse herself of everything. So you have also making an appearance is going to be Ted Hughes. And so let's break it down stanza by stanza, and we're going to talk about um, that. So you do not do any more black shoe, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years, poor and wide. So after 30 years, she's no longer going to live trapped inside this memory of her father. The first comparison that she gives, and she gives several comparisons of him in they're really metaphors and similes. Of her dad is this black shoe in which she's lived like a foot. So think about the little old woman who lived in the shoe, and that sing song repetition, the word achoo, all of those baby talk, and that half nursery rhyme we were kind of talking about. Um, Plath plays with the sounds, and she's going to continue to play with them throughout the entire poem, which is very interesting because you have you do, shoe, I chew. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. So, and you're going to have that multiple times throughout the poem. And that gives the poem momentum and energy, and it's eerily reminiscent of a train, a train heading towards its final destination, which ties into this whole World War II, concepts that she's kind of going for here, and Jews and Hitler, and the train carrying passengers to the killing camps, Auschwitz, Dachau. Um, and so that ooh ooh sound, she's going to repeat that throughout the poem as well. She says, Daddy, I've had to kill you. You died before I had time. Marble heavy, a bag full of God, ghastly statue with one gray toe big as a Frisco seal. So Daddy, again, I said that it's strange that she uses that word, but that just goes to show like how much power and presence that he had in her life, that, she's still referring to him as daddy, daddy, throughout the poem.